Joni, I'm talking to
How's
you.
it going, Grasshopper?
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Good morning.
Do you not like Grasshopper, or do you like Grasshopper? I take.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for attending our virtual luncheon featuring Colonel Ivan Herwick. We would like to thank our luncheon sponsors. Diamond sponsors are Definitive Logic, Deloitte, Segway Technologies, a Tetra Tech company, and our Sapphire sponsors, Array, Cloud Lake, and Akama Company, Macalogic, and PE Systems. Again, a special thank you to these companies. Without them, we would not be able to provide our STEM scholarships and educational materials for our future youth throughout the year. Some chapter announcements that we have. Upcoming events, the Emerging Leaders have a networking event at Eudora Brewing Company in Dayton on July 28th at 4 p.m. They also have another event happening on September 1st, which is a volunteer opportunity at One Bistro in Xenia from 4:30 to 8 p.m. If you want to attend any of those events, you can register on our website for any of them. Then our chapter's biggest event of the year is the Mixed Conference, Golf Outing and Casino Night, which happens September 13th through the 15th. I will let Tim Meixner share more on that in just a moment. But over to Yvonne Vermillion to present some awards.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's luncheon. I am the president of the Dayton-Wright chapter of AFCEA. I'm honored today to present a couple awards. Billy Grill, are you on the line? I see you logged in there. I'm honored.
I just got to figure out how to unmute.
Well, I'm honored to present you with this President's Award for Service for the Dayton-Wright chapter of AFCEA. You've provided service to our chapter for quite a long time. Supported a lot of the presidents and a lot of the folks in the organization. You're always willing and able to support us with any of our wild apricot or website issues we may have. And I know you've got a pretty full plate yourself, but you're always willing to step up and help us in areas of need. You've really done a great job in continuing to promote our activities and really supporting our chapter brand. You're someone we can always count on for the chapter for advice and continuity. And I just wanted to thank you very much for that support. So this is a President's Award for Service for the chapter. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Yvonne. I knew you had something up your sleeve when you asked me to come to the luncheon. I was going to make it anyway, but I really appreciate it. I mean, it's always a pleasure working with you guys and for the greater good. You're all great folks, and I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world, what we do and who we do it for. So all my pleasure, and I'll keep it at that.
Thank you, Billy. Shroff, I see you're on. Hi there. Well, I'm honored to present you also this President's Award for Service for the Dayton-Wright chapter. I've had the pleasure of working with you over the last couple of years in your role of VP of Community Relations. You found value in the local professional organizations and getting them together to share their missions, started regular meetings with the various chapter leadership, helped to organize a master calendar so we could all see what each of the organizations had going on, as well as some of the greater conferences that were occurring, so we could try to deconflict and allow our audience and our members to attend all of these events. You provide a lot of thought leadership to the chapter, especially on our value proposition on volunteering and giving back, and helped us update our Make an Impact page on our website. Hope everyone will check that out. And you're also supporting our emerging leaders with some advice on upcoming speakers and events. And I just wanted to thank you personally for all you do for the chapter. Thank you, Shah.
Yvonne, thanks. You know, I've always known about AFCEA. I used to be a guest speaker a lot when I was down in Montgomery, and you know, I've had an opportunity to learn about the emerging leader programs up close and personal. In fact, I try to attend some of those, even though I am a little bit over 40. But I really appreciate that you and David reached out to me to ask me to take on a position. because that says a lot of trust that you have in me to go and do something like that. But one of the things that, you know, when I retired from the Air Force back in 2018, as I looked at what I wanted to do in post, you know, my time in the Air Force, one of the first things that came to mind was, you know what? I've always watched all these groups and I've never supported these groups directly. And so I committed when I retired in 2018 to become an active member. And I will tell you, I wish I had done that a lot longer ago, because what I have found is that the people that are doing this work are such fantastic people. And it's an opportunity in some cases to establish some of those relationships. So I'm glad 3 years ago that I started doing this, and I you know, very much appreciate the recognition, and all that's going to do is make it work that much harder now. Darn it.
Good that it worked. I wanted to talk about our Wright IT Summit next. As you may know, Tim Meixner was our chair and fearless leader for last year's 2020 Wright IT Summit, and did a phenomenal job even during the pandemic. It was Tim's vision to really present a summit that focused on Industry 4.0. And it was a topic that covered a greater depth of information and knowledge and really technical expertise that spanned a larger cross-section of our greater Wright-Pat and, quite frankly, our Air Force community. The event was live streamed and attracted a larger audience than we could ever expect. In honor of his many hours of support, dedication, and work to make the conference a success, I'm proud to present Dr. Meixner with this President's Award for Exceptional Leadership. I think Tim is on the line. And as a bonus, he's decided to keep the role of chair for this year's summit, and has already been working on putting together a quite exceptional agenda for this year's conference being held the 13th and 14th of September at the University of Dayton Marriott. I think Tim is on the line. Maybe he can share with us a little bit more about this conference for this year. Thank you very much, Tim.
Hey, thanks, Yvonne. That's really, really nice recognition. Like the other previous speaker, I completely unexpected, and you know, obviously getting a recognition around you know, a successful Wright IT Summit was really just a reflection of the entire of the team.
I'm losing you a little bit there.
Coming together, these buckets for all across the you can't hear me?
A little bit, breaking up a little bit.
Am I okay now? Am I coming through a little more clear?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I switched. We're in the midst of coming back to the office, so we're back in the office 2 full days a week, and I'm transitioning between meetings, so I apologize. I'm on my mobile device, but you know, obviously a team effort to put on the last Wright IT Summit, and even better opportunities this year. And so, you know, this year, 14th, 15th of September. Please pencil that date in. Make sure your attendance is there for both days, because like Yvonne said, we have a very, very robust agenda. We're going to continue with the theme. I think, you know, technology at the edge has legs. It's obviously where the Air Force is headed. If you look at the Air Force and the digital airmen to the command with the digital campaign, to the center I support, Sustainment Center, working through digital transformation and how we create the digital depot to include, you know, the Lifecycle Management Center and our partnership with the Rapid Sustainment Office. You can see that digitization and the digital Air Force is riding the coattails of the economy in a larger sense. And so this summit is really going to capitalize on, one, the foundation that we as a team set last year, and build on that to make it even more robust. And so I think, last year was really focused on cybersecurity and the digital efforts. This year is going to be a lot more on the practical application and technology at the edge, to include 5G. We're going to bring in that everything as a service concept, and then really where the weapon systems are going with digital transformation. Obviously that the cloud and how you build efforts around digital fusion between a hybrid cloud on-prem environment is going to be huge. So we're going to be talking about that. Lots of interest from the shop to participate. In addition to that, just a big focus on where the Air Force is going. So we've got some panels and keynote speakers across the Air Force spectrum and some industry panels. So we're extremely excited about this summit. Obviously, it's going to have the casino night smack dab as the pinnacle event, kind of in between day 1 and 2 in the evening. So again, really excited about the opportunity to support AFCEA and the Wright chapter again, and work with the team in bringing this to reality. So thanks, Yvonne, for the recognition, and thanks for the opportunity to support again.
Thanks for your support, Tim. Couldn't do it without you. Hope everybody will attend the summit. Registration is open on our Wild Apricot website, and sponsorship opportunities are still available. I hope you can come out to that, or golf the day before, or the casino night on Tuesday. Joni, back to you.
Great, thanks, Yvonne. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Colonel Ivan Herwick, who is the 88th Communications Group Commander at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. He leads over 450 cyber and operations support airmen in operating the Air Force's largest voice and data networking, supporting 30,000 users and an airfield with 10,000 air operations a year. He is responsible for information technology, cyber defense, airfield operations, and munition support for one of the Air Force's largest and most diverse bases, supporting the 88th Air Base Wing and 115 tenant units, including Headquarters Air Force Material Command, Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, National Air and Space Intelligence Center, Air Force Research Laboratory, Air Force Institute of Technology, and the 445th Airlift Wing. Colonel Herwick graduated from the United States Air Force Academy in 1997 with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and holds a master's degree in Computer Resource and Information Management from Webster University. Colonel Herwick has served at Squadron Group, Wing, Major Command, Headquarters Air Force, and Combat Command and Joint Staff levels. With that, I will hand it over to Colonel Herwick.
Hey, Joni, I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
All right, thank you. So with that great intro, I hope she didn't set me up for failure with in terms of expectation management here. But so I want to thank AFCEA. So first of all, I want to thank Wade Rupert, or Rupee, as many people know him. It was his invite that got me talking today. And as those that know him know, you don't say no to Wade Rupert, right? So when he calls and says, "Here's kind of the topic, maybe you should talk about," I took a little bit of license with it, but hopefully we can get there, and I can stay in his good graces.
You are funny.
Well, I tell you what, AFCEA is such an important organization, and as one of the larger communications organizations on Wright-Patterson, really this relationship between us and AFCEA really goes back a number of years. And so I almost think of this in some respects as a family meeting, if you will, right? I owe the family a little bit of an update of what's going on with one of its members. And so hopefully we can have a little bit of a dialogue. I'm watching the chat, so I hopefully can keep up if questions pop up during the conversation. And then I should have plenty of time left over at the end for any questions we don't get to along the way. So I want to talk a little bit about group capabilities in the future. So we talk a lot about the Air Force talks a lot about things in broad sense. We know we're doing this cyber thing. We know we're doing a whole bunch of other stuff. But what does that mean to Wright-Pat? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're also going to talk about the future. As many of you know, there's a reorganization coming in the future. So I thought I'd share a little bit about that and maybe have a discussion around that if there's some questions or concerns. I know we got a broad spectrum of folks on the line here, from industry to some of my own teammates. So hopefully I'll cover down in the interest that you have. So with any luck, you are seeing a slide change here. So I thought it value added to spend just a couple moments talking about the strategic landscape. None of these things are new to many of you, but they do kind of set the perspective and provide some context of there's some large muscle movements going on in the Air Force right now. I'll start up at the top. CVR, Commercial Virtual Remote. That commercial instance of Microsoft Teams, much like what we're using right now, really changed some things for the DoD and specifically the Air Force. It proved that we could do some things that we really didn't realize we could do before. And so capitalizing on the, finding the good over the last year and a half of the pandemic really showed us what IT can do and what, you can't see the slides. Okay, let me see if
We have a gray screen. When you switched screens, when you switched slides, we saw it. There you go.
All right, is that better?
Perfect.
All right. Well, so what that means is I apologize. That screen is now over the top of the chat session. So you'll have to come up on voice if something is important here. So anyway, it proved really what IT could do for the Air Force and the Department of Defense. Enterprise IT as a service, something we've been talking about quite a while. And it's going to fundamentally change the way we deliver IT in the department or within the Department of the Air Force. Really changing that model, not contracting out service, but hiring someone else to provide the service in total. Talked a little bit about telework, talked about coronavirus 2019 and kind of what that forced us to learn. For those, over the last month, we've been making that transition back from from CVR to cloud-hosted enterprise services, or CHES, or AFNet Teams, or whatever you want to call it. And building out additional capabilities and just making that a natural part of our business. We've got some workforce transition stuff going on. On the officer side of the house, we made a number of changes over the last few years related to the 17 Delta, 17 Sierra splits. We've got the U.S. Space Force stuff rolling into this landscape. So a lot of changes that have already occurred. Going forward over the next few years, we're gonna bring substantial change to the enlisted workforce as we change AFCEAs and we move more to a shred experiential model. As opposed to a core AFSC where you're locked into specific left and right boundaries. So between the Agile Airman development and that workforce transition, we've got a lot going on. Our civilian workforce, you've seen a lot with trying to get smarter about identifying requirements and managing the workforce, giving credit where credit is due for experience in our civilian workforce. Here in our organization too, just like many, we have difficult talent management efforts to work on at times, right? There are more folks around my age than there are much younger than me. So we've got a lot of work and a lot of change coming forward. But where I want to spend a good chunk of the time, the first part of my time here today is talking about the Cyber Squadron Initiative, or CSI. Sometimes that's referred to as mission defense or mission assurance. You hear a lot about it. What I want to do is try to describe what it means to us and give you kind of a flavor of what that means at a wave top level. Let's see if we can change slides here. So our approach to mission assurance, when we talk cyber mission assurance, we talk mission defense teams. In Air Force parlance, we're often talking about the stereotypical F-35 mission. protecting and defending that mission from cradle to grave from an operational standpoint. Wright-Patterson isn't that, right? We're not a F-35 unit. We're not a KC-46 unit. We're a collection of a bunch of different missions, with 115 mission partners, 33,000 some personnel on the installation. Yes, we have a flying mission here, but that's not the only sole primary mission that we have. So we have a lot of intellectual property, and we know that our adversaries have some interest in that research and development and that acquisition efforts, or those acquisition efforts that we've got going on the installation. But at the same time, we recognize that we've got to be resource informed, right? The sky may be the limit, but resources are going to inform how far we can get to that limit. So what do I mean by that? So if you look at this chart, I'm going to kind of orient you just a little bit, and then we'll talk about it. We've got the blue bar running across the bottom there. And generally speaking, when we talk about mission defense teams or mission assurance and mission defense in general, we're talking about those things over on the right, capabilities that have been fielded, that are out in the field, that are being fielded and provided to combatant commanders, that are out in training units and everything like that. Where we're focusing, because that's what we have going on at Wright-Pat, is kind of that left side over on. So where we have PEO activities, developmental effort, so across AFMC, our focus is kind of in that yellow space, not so much in the gray space. We're not saying that's not important, but programs spent years and years and years in the yellow space. And that's where we're making substantial investments. And so it's not, the adversary can't just take away from us when we're out there executing a mission. They can take away the time, effort, and resources we've spent developing those capabilities over time on that whole left side of the chart. So we want to be over here protecting the intellectual capital, the intellectual property that the Air Force is developing, such that it doesn't it doesn't help our adversaries present additional capabilities against us when those capabilities get fielded in the future. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, so hopefully I'm making sense here, and maybe I can bring it home with a couple examples. So on the screen, you should see a bunch of pictures. Across the top, obviously Air Force variants. Across the bottom, not Air Force variants, but striking similarities between the images. If that's not enough, maybe some more similarities will convince you. And maybe even some more. So what I'm trying to say here is that our adversaries are using our own R&D, our own efforts, our own acquisition processes, essentially against us, right? We're making huge investments, and anything they can borrow from us is effort that they don't have to expend themselves. So we want to deny them. We want to make it more difficult for them to utilize our resources, our investments against us. So what does that look like in practical terms? Well, very, very high level. And for my team, yes, you've seen a version of this slide before, but greatly simplified for the purpose of our presentation today. I want to highlight, we kind of move through this cycle with a mission partner. So we go out to an LCMC or a AFRL, and we identify, hey, what are the things that are important to you, right? Because it shouldn't be what's important to us. We may have to, sorry, what was that?
Message, and I'll return your call as soon as possible. Thank you.
Maybe we got put on someone's voicemail here or something, but
well, either that or was the Chinese hacked into our call and they're just going to steal more of your stuff.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. So what does this look like in practical terms? So moving left to right on the chart, what we're trying to say is the mission partner that we're teamed up with, they're in the driver's seat, right? Because we don't know what's the most important, what's most dear to that organization. And we certainly don't know the pieces and parts of that particular mission that are near and dear. So we need to figure that out. And so we'll walk through a little bit of this as we go across the chart. One of those first steps is making contact with a mission partner. That sounds really easy on the surface, right? But if we're engaging in, let's say, the LCMC front office space to say, hey, what's the most important stuff to you, and identifying who a good mission partner is, we're a few steps removed from someone that's really in a good position to help us walk through the technical and programmatic, the technical aspects, both programmatically and IT wise of that program, such that we're in a good position to understand that mission and position ourselves to help them protect it. So sometimes that is a bit of an effort walking through that. Then we work with that mission partner and we say, hey, let's deconstruct your mission, right? Your mission space. And we've got a framework to help walk through that with them. But we end up identifying what we call mission relevant terrain cyber, or the important stuff, the important pieces of cyber that support the execution of your mission. So it may be a network, it may be a server, it may be the capability that presents for a particular user, right? However narrow or wide that needs to be. And we work with them until we understand that. And then we go figure out what are the threats against that. And you can imagine how that would work, right? What are our adversaries interested in? What capabilities do they have relative to that? We kind of do this matching game, right? Of how do we best understand what those threats might be against that important piece of terrain for our mission partner. So we come out of this discussion, right? A lot of tabletop, a lot of meetings, a lot of engagements with kind of an understanding of their mission. But then we got to get real. We move into a phase where we start putting equipment out or identifying log files that we need. What is the technical stuff we need to deploy and be ready for, so we can actually provide some value to the mission partner? How do we get access to their systems? All of those things.
Maximum compose time has been reached. Press 1 to send the message. Press 2 to review the message. Press 3 to re-record the message. Press 7 to delete the message.
Apologies, Colonel.
No, it's all good. Hey, speaking of mission assurance, right? And so in the end of that
Press
phase,
1 to send the message. Press 2 to review the message. Press 3 to re-record the message. Press 7 to delete the message.
so we're ready to deploy at the end of that phase. And then we're going to go into what we call a survey mission. And that is where we go
Press
out
1
and
to send the message. Press 2 to review the message. Press 3 to re-record the message. Press 7 to delete the message.
Hey, Jody, Dale Kirby here. Perhaps someone with their cell phone can press 7 and we can move on.
So
Press 1 to send the message. Press 2 to review the message. Press 3 to re-record the message. Press 7 to delete the message.
So with Teams, hopefully you can actually mute that line, but those of us who are guests don't have that power.
Yeah, we're trying to remove it, but it's not.
Well, I'll try to talk over it. How's that? And then
Message
you can
sent.
tell me if that doesn't.
Goodbye.
But we're going to go into a survey mission, and this is kind of the first time we're on mission. We're engaged with their mission space, and really what we're trying to do is figure out what is normal, right? Because in some senses, the way you find things, right, the nefarious things on the network is just by identifying what is not normal, what shouldn't be there, right? But at the same time, we're also coming up with an understanding of that environment such that we can develop a risk mitigation plan, right? How is it that the risks we identify on the network relative to their mission, relative to the threat, how are we going to, what are some things we can do to buy down that risk? It's not stuff we do, right? It's stuff we're doing alone and unafraid. We're doing that in coordination with the mission partner. Many times they're doing it themselves, right? As we, again, harden things, we we identify places that we can harden their environment. And then we go off and do that, right? We implement that risk mitigation plan. So what are some things, again, identifying those things that maybe misconfigurations or tighter configurations, not allowing erroneous traffic or unneeded traffic, those kinds of basic blocking and tackling kind of things. But there's going to be some leftover. There's going to be some residual that you just can't solve, right? The analogy I often use is the installation entry control points, right? We can look at those gates and we can say, hey, there's some vulnerabilities here. We can adapt them. We can put out bollards. We can even build whole new gates, right? But at the end of the day, there is stuff that's left that only a security forces member can do. Same thing in this space, right? At the end of the day, there is stuff that only an active team with the technology and the people behind it can provide. And so we take that mission defense plan, if you will, that identification of what the people are going to provide, the team is going to provide, and we take that and we move into the protect mission. And that's where we implement that plan, and then we stay there. As long as the mission needs, we stay there and we provide persistent defense of that mission space. So for example, we are on mission with a mission partner today. We are in a protect mission. And so we will stay in that protect mission. Now, if you look forward in the documentation and reporting, we're providing daily reports back, but obviously we're not closing out that mission until the mission partner and us agree that it's no longer required. So we can stay there. And then with a second mission partner, we can start the process all over again. And so you can see real quickly that the resources you need in maybe the site survey space might not be the same resources that you need over in the protect mission space. So as we grow, we figure out more and more about what resourcing requirements we have and how we structure ourselves to best provide the right amount of capability to our mission partners going forward. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm setting myself for kind of a hard break here, talking about the future of the communications groups. Are there any questions on the MDT kind of mission defense space?
Colonel, there was a question in the chat session here, and I'm not sure if it was fully answered, so I'm going to clarify. Kimberly Underwood asked, how do you see the MDTs growing in the next few years?
Yeah, great question. And so probably a partial answer, but not a full answer. So let me see if I can round that out just a little bit. We think there is an appetite for more, right? And that appetite is only going to be tempered with the amount of resources that we have available to us to meet those requirements. And so I see it substantially growing. Exactly what that looks like is the difficulty, right? How many people of a certain type of specialty is it going to take, right? How many people of how much IT, how heavy of an IT footprint do we need? What technologies do we need to bring on board or champion with the Air Force to bring? So broadly speaking, I think the answer is we see it growing. What we don't know is what that looks like or how fast we can manage to grow. So you've seen a lot of conversation across the Air Force about resourcing this, right? So not getting too far in the weeds, it's the budgetary conditions that we're under don't see substantial growth in this, or the ability to resource substantial growth across the Air Force, right? So we're going to have to prioritize. We're going to have to figure out what is most dear to the Air Force. So as we corporately figure out how much we can afford, we'll apply the resources that we have available to us to our mission partners' missions. Hopefully that helps a little bit, Kimberly.
Great, thank you. Just as an FYI, your screen is gray again, but I do have another question from Jeff Fair. He's asking, is the growth of MDTs contingent upon the rollout of ITAS?
Yeah, so great question. You've seen some traffic that those two are tied together. We've tried to deconflict them just a little bit, but in the end, however we resource it, there's some people and dollars that have to be generated at a corporate level. So if those are generated out of ITAS, or those are generated out of a straight submission in the budgetary processes, and just having direct growth, we're I'm agnostic to how that happens, but I do know we need to reconcile where we have resource growth and where we have the desire for mission growth. So not a great answer to your question, but be quite honest, I myself asked that question of one of our senior leaders in a forum very, very much like this. And the answer was very much that. We've got a lot of reconciling to do. We've got a large appetite and probably not enough to feed it. So what does that restructure look like? Because maybe we can't get to the vision of as many MDTs as you need at every installation.
Great, thank you. The next question comes from Rupi. What is the biggest risk to bringing down the comm group, and what are the mitigation steps to achieve success?
Yeah, Rupi, thanks for the transition point here. So I'm going to get a slide over to the slides again, hopefully, and we will. You have your, we should be off the gray screen then, right?
Yes, sir. All
right. So we are gonna restructure in the 88th Air Base Wing on Wright-Pat here. And what we're looking at doing is deactivating the comm group late spring of 2022. So I want to frame that a little bit for some folks that may not, like me, that are relatively new to this area. So surprisingly, I was surprised to find out the 88th Comm Group has its lineage back to 1951. All of that at Wright-Pat. This isn't a lineage linking to some World War II unit in Europe like we often do. This is directly here at Wright-Pat, a lineage for this organization back to 1951. And we took on its current name in 1994. So we've been the 88th Comm Group for quite a while. And we stayed roughly that way for some time. We had a squadron that did the daily ops stuff, but the group largely functioned as a single comm unit, kind of analogous to a normal installation comm squadron, just larger. And so in 2019, though, we added the 88th Operations Support Squadron to the family. Part of that was in recognition of the fact that over time, the unit was getting smaller, right? And we were encroaching upon the numbers that the Air Force says, you kind of need to be this big to be a group. And so as we approached that number, we looked, the wing looked across itself and said, you know what? We've got this OSS tucked up underneath the wing. We've got a group that's getting a little smaller. It's kind of a squadron in need of a group in need of a squadron kind of scenario. And so as we look to the future over the next year, so we added that in. And then later in 2019, many of you may have heard or seen the press about the Mission Operations Group provisional experiment that the wing did. We said, hey, so we've got the comm squadron, specifically its cyber capabilities, its mission defense capabilities, kind of working in the cyber domain. We've got the OSS working in the air domain. Why do we have the land domain with the security forces and some of the emergency management functions? Those are off on other groups. Maybe it makes sense to consolidate those under a single commander, and we can work to integrate both C2 and day-to-day operations and administrative functions. So we went through an experiment there for a little bit of what does that look like, and kind of evaluating where whether or not that was a viable option to kind of focus those operational functions. In the end, we kind of figured out that the benefits didn't outweigh the negatives. There was a lot of administrative churn, and there was a lot of things that, based on what we jokingly call manpower math, how many people you earn for a certain function and things like that, that really kind of get complicated when you move those organizations around like that. And add all that stuff together, and it just wasn't worth the potential benefits of integrating those functions and being a unique organization unlike anything else in the Air Force. So last fall we settled on a plan that we're going to deactivate the comm group. We think that's going to happen around May or June of next year. And then we're going to move the comm squadron, just like it is at most other Air Force bases. It's going to align under the mission support group. The OSS, that recent member or the recent addition to the family, they're actually going to go back and work directly for the Air Base wing. So a bunch of questions normally come out of that. And so I'm going to try to address them in the form of some frequently asked questions. What do I typically get asked? And so why are we doing it? We talked a little bit about the group size piece, but in the end, we're a comm squadron and an OSS organization. Right? There's nothing in the Air Force lexicon, in the vocabulary of our organizations, that correctly describes that organization, because a comm group isn't it. On a day-to-day basis, I'm no longer the lead comm guy on the installation. That is Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Crapo, who happens to be retiring tomorrow. But he's the day-to-day lead comm guy for the installation as the comm squadron commander. I'm just the group that oversees him, his squadron, and the OSS. So we've kind of moved ourselves away from being that large communications group already. So this is a bit of a recognition of that. What's going to change for our mission partners? Absolutely nothing, right? The comm squadron is still going to do installation communications, and they're still going to do the cyber mission support. All the mission defense stuff that we just talked about, none of that changes. They're just going to do that from the vantage point of the MSG as opposed to the communications group. The OSS will continue providing airfield and munitions support to the installation and all of our mission partners. So nothing changes there. It just changes who the squadron commanders report to. And sometimes people interpret this as a demotion on the importance of cyber. And that couldn't be farther from the truth either. We're going to continue to adapt and develop all of those mission defense capabilities we were talking about. We're going to continue to adapt to Air Force-driven changes in IT service, the ITASs of the world, the CHESs of the world, and whatever else comes next, right? We will still be one of the largest deployments of those capabilities in the Air Force. We're just going to do it with a slightly different organizational structure. So getting back to your comment there, Rupi, the biggest risk of bringing down the comm group is that I don't do my job over the next year of making sure we settle those organizations in and we don't create excessive churn as we conduct this transition. So hopefully that answers your question there. And I'm going to see if I can figure out how to stop transmitting the slides there.
We have another question in the chat here with regards to the mission and importance of MDTs. Will the need for a cyber defense correlation cell, CDCC, be required? And if so, how? From Ed Decker.
Yeah, great question, Ed. And I will say yes and soon is the upfront answer to that. What we are finding is it isn't just about local tactical capabilities in terms of engaging with a mission partner and providing mission defense day in, day out. What if that team finds something, right? Who are they going to help them integrate those issues across the Air Force, across platforms, working with the likes of 16th Air Force and others, making sure we get the right resources thrown at a potential problem, all the while making sure that we're prioritizing things across the command and then by extension across the Air Force when resources become a limiting factor. So we've got to bring in that that aggregation and that coordination capability. So that's the installation bubbling up. We also need to bring in that capability from the perspective of specific weapon systems. So there needs to be an expert place to go and work and coordinate and consolidate, issues related to the F-35 or the KC-46 or ICS SCADA. So if we have an issue, who are the experts that can help see that and then can help promulgate those lessons learned and those issues to other units across the Air Force. Hopefully that helps, Ed. Does that answer your question? All right, thanks, Ed. And I see Rupi, you got a question there. There are other groups in the Air Force being drawn down. Are you syncing with your counterparts as to transitions? Are all the other groups aligned so differently that there aren't many similarities? Yeah, great question. So I think Rupi is referring to a lot of discussion about the communications group at Scott, essentially following suit with what we're doing on much the same timeline. And while the reasons in terms of size and everything like that, some of those factors are all the same, the timing is actually just coincidental, right? Here at Scott, or sorry, here at Wright-Pat, we've got this comm squadron and OSS combination. At Scott, they've got the comm squadron and the support squadron combination. So similar kind of issues, but completely coincidental that these are executing with similar results on similar timelines. Does that answer your question, Rupi?
It does. I appreciate it, my brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions out there?
I have a question. So with the adversary interest in R&D, has your budget lined up with the future outlook? And if not, how do you plan to keep those external interests at arm's length?
Yeah. So competing priorities, how do you resource this, right? So the broad answer is no. I don't think that they've grown commensurate. But in the end, I'm not sure that we'll ever be able to, right? That's a large R&D field, but that's a large acquisition field. So the landscape is huge. To resource this level of capability for everything, everywhere, is probably an insurmountable, goal. But what we can do is make sure we're learning and applying things back to the broader Air Force network, if you will. Making sure we're raising the bar across the board, making it harder for our adversary to gain interest. So the Air Force at large is going to defend itself, but teams like the mission defense teams and other capabilities will always be there to have a mission focus, to be augmentive to that baseline ability to defend the network and those missions. And so for us, it has been largely internal, shifting resources to where they weren't needed to this mission space where we perceive that they are needed. We've got some things in the Air Force in work to potentially lay out resources more broadly, but those are all things in work kind of relative to that ITAS and other budget discussions previously. So right now we're limited by what we can put together within ourselves and what our mission partners can help us support. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have questions?
Hey, with that, I want to thank you for your time. And hopefully it was at least somewhat informative for you, giving some insight into a practical sense of what cyber mission defense and persistent mission defense look like for the 88th Comm Group, and then a little peek into what the next year holds. And you'll see more about that. We're trying to be deliberate about this. We're going to try to talk about our history over the next 10 months, and, culminating with a deactivation ceremony. So really trying to highlight the great contributions of this organization historically. And so I want to thank you again, AFCEA, for being a great teammate and a great partner, and looking forward to seeing everyone in person in future meetings and engagements and out for the conference. So appreciate it. Thank you.
So Ivan, hey, it's Rupy. I just want to say thanks. I know how busy you are, and you got a lot on your plate, but thanks for spending a little time with us. And for Joni and Yvonne, he's going to help us by hosting an event for some AFCEA membership stuff in August. So we're working through the exact date and location. Might be at the Oak Club, but it's important to get our defense industrial base, our civilians, and our military members around the Wright chapter area involved in AFCEA, and Ivan is going to help us with that, as well as Mike Phillips, the new AFMCA 6. So thanks to both of you guys. They understand the importance of the organization, what it brings to the fight for the warfighter, and what its collective goodness is. So thank you guys.
Yes, thank you, Colonel Herwick, and thanks, Ruthie. It's people like Ruthie who have a vision of what our luncheons can provide to our industry. And so if you ever have an interest of a topic or someone who you'd like to hear speak, AFCEA is always willing to have those, those ideas. So please send those over. But we thank you for being a part of our 2021 Luncheon Series, and very honored to have had you speak. And I'm sure the rest of our AFCEA family feels the same way. So if you're interested in any future events, being a sponsor or want to volunteer as we get back to in-person events, as Colonel Herwick stated, please reach out to myself or any committee members, or check out our website. Previous luncheons and our other events have been recorded and on our YouTube channel. If you go out to our website under events and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll find the link to our channel. Thank you for attending today's session, and we hope to see you again on August 19th for our luncheon with Mr. Dennis D'Angelo, the Executive Director of Air Force Sustainment Center at Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma, talking about how AFSC is managing the organic industrial base for the future. So with that, have a great Thursday, and hopefully everyone gets some sunshine wherever you are.
Thanks, Joni.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joni.